Welcome, lovely listeners, to another exciting episode of Transform Yourself, the podcast that's all about empowering you to shed those stubborn pounds and embrace your best selves. We are your hosts, Kacy and Tyler, and we use the 4 M's of fitness: Mindshift, Mealshift, micro habits, and muscle building to create an attainable and sustainable approach to weight loss. We have lost a collective 130 pounds. We've kept it off for 2 years. And last week, we covered the topic of Mindshift. That's the first M of FormFit. And this week we are covering the second M, Mealshift. The following 2 weeks, we're going to cover micro habits and muscle building. Today, all about Mealshift, that second M. So let me tell you why it comes second to Mindshift. It comes second because we can all change our bodies through changing how we eat. But those that tackle Mindshift along with Mealshift, those people are more likely to sustain the weight loss long term. I know, y'all, I yo-yo dieted for years, and I attribute so much of my yo-yo dieting to the idea that I was not changing the way I thought about weight loss, or the way I thought about myself, or my self-talk. And it was not until I addressed that issue, or my mind shift, or I changed the way I thought about weight loss and myself, that I was able to actually have sustainable weight loss. So Mindshift does come first. If you did not listen to that episode, just go back an episode, give that a listen. Today's episode, all about Mealshift. I also want to make note that Mealshift does have to precede micro habits and muscle building, the third and fourth M of FormFit, because you could have all of the habits like drinking water every day, going to the gym 6-7 days a week. But if you don't change the way you eat, you're not going to see success. Exercising without a good diet plan is almost pointless. I'm sure you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, meaning that weight loss is said to be 80% diet and 20% exercise. So let's kind of dive into that rule. And is this rule true? Let me break it down. To shed 1 pound of body fat in 1 week, you have to produce a 3,500 calorie deficit because 1 pound of body fat is equal to 3,500 calories. Even if you work out every single day, but you continue to consume more than you burn, you're going to gain weight. Creating a deficit in calories only through exercise would be really
impossible.
Yes, it would be challenging. I'm not saying it's impossible.
It basically is for the average. Unless you're an elite athlete, or you're 18, it's not going to happen for a normal person. When a Snickers bar, a plain normal Snickers bar, is 250 calories, and you could power through 3 of those in a minute.
Yeah.
Then food, you can't exercise your way out. You
can't outrun your fork is kind of what I like to say.
It doesn't, and it's the same thing with you can't add back calories you burn because you're going to overestimate and you're going to underestimate how much you actually eat. So you're going to be in a worse spot.
Right. So diet is the most important thing for fat loss. Exercise, strength training, that is important for long-term sustainability, but we're going to get into that topic when we reach that episode, the 4th M of FormFit muscle building. First, let's cover the idea that you must be in a calorie deficit for fat loss to occur. And the easiest way to do that is to reduce your caloric intake through changing what you eat. If your friend Karen across the street, she's telling you not to worry about being in a calorie deficit, just follow her intermittent fasting plan. After all, that's how she lost 20 pounds. Well, then Karen is in a calorie deficit. She's just shortening the window of time of which she eats. Therefore, she is expending more calories than she's consuming. If your coworker Susan tells you how magical her ketogenic diet is, well, Susan is creating a calorie deficit for herself through eating less carbs. If Pam tells you cut out all the sugar and fat from your diet, Pam is also in a calorie deficit. What I'm saying here is that Karen, Susan,
all
Pam,
roads lead back to calorie deficit.
Yes, all of it. It doesn't matter what diet you do. And that's the thing. You have to really do the you diet, not Karen's diet. No, don't go looking for the magic wand. Don't go looking for pixie dust. You need to do the diet that works for you. And so I call that the you diet. That starts with what is sustainable? What is sustainable for you? And I can tell you from years of practice in dieting, cutting out an entire macro, fats, carbs. I never really cut out protein.
You can't. You'll die.
I mean,
if you went 6 months without protein,
it would be really hard to go that long with that. You would have to not eat because vegetables have protein. The problem is that if you're creating restriction on yourself, whether that's a restriction through a keto diet with carbs, or whether that's a restriction that's a time restriction through intermittent fasting, maybe you're doing a fat restriction, those diets just won't be sustainable long term. I'm not saying they can't, it's impossible. There are people all over the internet who have done keto for 10 years and good on them. For the average person, I just don't see it being sustainable.
Makes a lot more sense long term just to live a balanced lifestyle and not camp A or camp B where you're totally restricted.
Right. It just feels restrictive when you start cutting out certain foods. Having a balanced approach with no restrictions is really going to help you repair your relationship with food. And it's better for long-term fat loss and dietary adherence. Take that flexible, balanced approach to changing your diet. And that's what I refer to as Mealshift. At FormFit, I have 4 core principles of Mealshift, and I'm going to touch lightly on each of these today. If you want more of an in-depth coverage of Mealshift, all 4 M's really, I cover these in my self-paced Transform Yourself course at thecaloriedeficitqueen.com. It does come with 42 instructional videos, 60-page workbook to guide you through the 4 M's. Quick plug real quick. If you are listening to this podcast, I'm putting a code up for the month of April. You can use code FORMFIT, the number 4, letter M, FIT, for 30% off the Transform Yourself course if you want to take a deeper dive with me into the 4 M's of fitness. So back to the 4 core principles of Mealshift. They are prioritizing protein, number 2, volume eating, number 3, portion control, and number 4, aligning your environment. We did an entire podcast a month ago on protein, so that covers much of the topic of protein. Many of my clients, they want to track all their macros, carbs, fats, protein, overall calories. And we've said it before, we'll say it again, that's Fitness 201. So many of you have not yet mastered 101. If you're not accurately and consistently tracking calories, how are you going to accurately and consistently track
most people
your fats, proteins, and carbs? And I get that the trackers do it for you, but it is not something I recommend to any of my clients.
To what?
To track all macros.
Oh. Well, I was going to say, it's not even that people aren't in the 201 level. Most people haven't even gotten to the building to go to the 101 class yet.
What do you mean by that?
The general knowledge that most people have is pretty low on this stuff. People are trying to jump way ahead. Anyway.
I think it's just the shiny new thing. Is tracking all macros is kind of like the shiny new thing that everybody seems to be doing. I feel like it just complicates things. Why not make things simple? Because when we keep it simple, we can keep it sustainable. On my website at thecaloriedeficitqueen.com, I have a free calorie deficit calculator and a free protein goal calculator. You can go, you can input your information, age, height, sex, all that stuff. It will spit out your calorie deficit. It will have a low and high range for you. And the reason I have my clients eat in a range is because, again, we're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming to keep it simple so that it can be sustainable. When it's sustainable is when you see results. If you have a goal of fat loss, it is important to keep your protein high. I would argue that protein is the most important macro for both fat loss and muscle gain, or any body composition change for that matter. If you're accurately tracking your calories, and by accurate, by the way, I mean you're using a food scale at every meal, and you're also eating enough protein daily, you do not have a reason to worry about where your carbs or fats are. It's not possible to overeat carbs and fats if you're in your calorie deficit and you're meeting your protein goal. The reason we want to, go ahead.
I was going to say it's a math problem. It's the math problem that your third grader gets, where you've got X amount of calories for protein plus blank equals your total calories for the day.
Right.
If you know what your total calories are and you know how many grams of protein you need to eat every day, you know the value of those calories. So then you have a really close ballpark of what the middle number needs to be. And that's everything else.
Absolutely. The reason we want to increase our protein when we're in a fat loss phase is because it keeps you fuller longer. It provides satiety. It helps you boost your metabolism. It helps you mitigate muscle loss that occurs simultaneously when you are in a fat loss phase. In my Transform Yourself course, I cover further topics like protein efficiency. I cover how to be successful at increasing your protein intake. I teach you a protein trick. We go over great sources of protein. That is kind of a deeper dive in my Transform Yourself course. On to the second core principle of Mealshift, which is volume eating. And what this means is that we want to eat as much food as possible for as few calories as possible. You can have a plate full of food. You can have a giant bowl of food for very few calories if you do it right. I like to teach my clients how to do this. And the best way to volume eat is to eat your fruits and veggies. Don't be afraid of fruits and veggies. Vegetables specifically are very low calorie for the volume of food that you can get. You could literally load a plate full of roasted zucchini, broccoli, cauliflower, and track very few calories. Doesn't that sound delicious to you?
No, it does not. Well, I don't like zucchini.
I know. That's why I brought it up. And you don't like cauliflower.
I like broccoli, though.
I still make it. The principle is basically just to keep yourself really full for a long period of time because you're filling yourself full of fiber and nutrients that you need. When you load your stomach full of fruits and vegetables along with much needed protein, then you're very likely to be satisfied and not reaching for a snack an hour later or 2 hours later. You're going to stay full. In the Transform Yourself course, in this section, I cover kind of food swaps that you can make. I cover how to use those first two core principles together, prioritizing protein, volume eating, in order to make a meal plan for the week and make assembling meals easy. The third core principle of Mealshift is portion control. It is possible to eat too much of a good thing. It'd be really, really tough to overeat protein and vegetables, but it would be possible. It's just not realistic. Most of my clients eat a balanced diet of proteins, vegetables, fruits, bread, rice, pastas, fats, and many of my clients, much like me, we like desserts. And by the way, it's always my low-calorie dessert recipes that do the best on social media. I don't know why. It's always the video of the cake that does the best. They get the most views, the most shares, the most comments.
I think it probably has a lot to do with your target audience.
Probably. I mean,
no one wants to watch me make a cake, but people might watch me cook a steak.
What?
I'm just saying, for a bunch of women following you, they would probably like seeing that because that's probably more in tune with, versus I know you've seen dudes watching steak porn on YouTube.
That's true.
Or barbecue porn on the internet.
That's you. You like to watch that stuff.
I do. Who doesn't? Why wouldn't you like that?
I'm not into a guy outside in what it looks like Alaska grilling a chicken over some fire. Over some fire
next to a river?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound magical to you?
No. The video is like 10 minutes long, that video that I'm talking about.
I know what video you're talking about.
You've watched it like a dozen times,
I know.
Too.
I've watched it for years, actually. I think I've seen this video. I know exactly what you're talking about, where he fries it.
I wish you looked at me the way you look at that chicken.
Oh, Lord.
All right. So the ladies like to have their desserts, including me. We just have to practice portion control with our desserts. You might notice that so many of the dessert recipes that I make and I share online, not all of them, but a lot of them, the recipe is for a single serving, not for multiple servings. And I do this on purpose. I learned during my own fat loss journey that if I could bake a dessert for just me, and then I was putting friction between me and second helpings, meaning I would have to start all over with mixing all of the ingredients to make a second dessert if I wanted more. It wasn't like grabbing a bag of Oreos where I'm just going to have a few.
You just moved on to the next row.
Right. Next row. It's true. So crafting desserts, for one, just made it to where I would only eat one. And I wasn't going to take the time or the dishes or all the things to go make a second one. And I still use this as a strategy for portion control. I still make single serving desserts.
Because the way you assemble dinners instead of cooking them, I don't know if that's also maybe part of the strategy, because then you're not tempted, even if you really like a meal, to go back because the meal is gone.
Right.
Now there's chicken in the fridge. There's other pieces in the fridge. So I guess in
But
theory,
I would have to make it again.
Yeah. So if you were really, really hungry, like if you had, I don't know, whatever, that day, you had a really hard workout, you're on your period, you've been in the sun for 4 hours.
Why do I have to be on my period?
Because it's going to make you extra hungry.
You're right.
I mean, you could, I guess, in theory, you could go make another, plate, but it's not ready to go. It's not convenient.
Right.
Which I think really it's doing the opposite. It's making unfast food. So then you're less likely just to chow down.
Slow food. Yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't think about it that way, but you're right. Assembling your meals for dinner is also putting friction between you and second helpings. Like I don't typically make giant casserole dishes full of food for dinner. If I do make something that looks like a casserole, it's in a 8x8 dish.
Like last night.
Exactly.
That's kind of what I was thinking about was last night's dinner, because we both split the last helping.
But that was it, because it was in an 8x8 dish. Yeah. So it fed us and our children, and there was only so much. And I could have easily made a 9x13, but we might have gone back for...
I would have gone back for more.
Right.
I really liked last night's dinner.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it.
I would have eaten another full-ass serving.
It was delicious. I will make a video of that one. Also, let me say that in so many of the videos, I get comments about measuring ingredients in grams, not in standard American measurements like tablespoons or cups. But I want to mention that using a scale is the most accurate way to have control over your calories that you're consuming. It takes all of the guesswork out of the equation. My scale, it lives pretty much on the kitchen counter. I use it daily, every single day.
I even use it daily.
You do. So we use our scale constantly in our house. It is the norm for us to measure our proteins. And yes, I know I've been doing it and I can eyeball 4 or 5 ounces of chicken very easily, but I like to be accurate. I guess I like to be accurate because it is kind of my job to be accurate, especially because I'm videoing my recipes. So I guess I have to, admit that I do it mostly because it's my job.
I could almost 100% guarantee that if there's a study done, even for a person like you, who is probably heads and shoulders above the rest of the world in terms of like being able to eyeball, like how many calories a particular food is, just because you've got that experience. If you just quit, I bet over time you would begin to underestimate those calories.
Absolutely. 100% yes.
Because you would say, well,
that looks good.
It's like we're going to go ahead and call that 200. Yeah. And it's really 228.
Right.
Or something like that. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think I could tell the difference in 20 or 50 grams of anything.
Right. Imagine in every video I said, this meal is around 200-ish calories. I would be the calorie deficit joker, not the calorie deficit queen. So I can't do that. I have to be accurate with it. Using that food scale, it just ensures that I'm consistently eating the right portions of food. I'm helping myself and you stay on track with measurements. The accuracy and the consistency, that's what translates into progress. It translates into progress towards your weight loss goal. If you're just guessing 4 ounces of chicken, you have no idea if you're actually in a calorie deficit. What can be measured can be mastered. If you don't have a food scale, go to your nearest Target or go get on Amazon.
$10-15, right?
Right. Super simple. Super simple. Finally, the fourth and final core principle of Mealshift is aligning your environment. In my Transform Yourself course, I give you an environmental checklist in your workbook. It's kind of like a checklist for your kitchen and for your house and the way it's set up. Because the way it's set up might be unknowingly causing food triggers that do not serve your goal. A quick example, You might have snacks that don't align with your goal front and center in your refrigerator. And every time you open your refrigerator door, there's the whatever it is, that's tempting you to grab that food. You can make some quick and easy changes to eliminate those kind of triggers. Somebody once said, and I don't remember who it was, but it's funny that in refrigerators, we have like a fruit and vegetable drawer. And we put all our fruits and veggies in those. And then we put all the other food kind of on the shelf. And they said, flip that. Put the foods that you don't want to eat as much. Because it doesn't matter if you put I don't feel like the veggie crisper drawer keeps them any more crisp. Maybe it does in your refrigerator because it's perfect.
You have a Sub-Zero fridge?
Yeah, we do not. So flip that, put your fruits and vegetables kind of right there on the shelf where you can see them, maybe pre-cut, pre-washed, things you can grab and go, grapes, things like that. The foods that maybe you don't want to be as tempting for you to grab and go, put those in the drawers where you don't see them. Because creating an environment that supports your weight loss goal can absolutely increase your chance at success of weight loss. We have to keep all 4 principles in mind when we change the way we eat. We have to prioritize protein. We need to volume eat, control our portions, and align our environment. Again, if you want to know more about Mealshift, or maybe you want to do a personal audit of your own 4 M's of fitness, Mindshift, Mealshift, microhabits, muscle building, you can use code FORMFIT, that's the number 4, letter M, FIT, during the month of April to get 30% off the Transform Yourself digital course. You find that at thecaloriedeficitqueen.com. It has 42 training videos that walk you through the 4 M's and how they fit into your lifestyle. It comes with a 60-page workbook that allows you to set intentional goals and teaches you how to meal prep. And you'll have access to that for an entire year, and your future self will thank you.
You should advertise all that in your other things, that you can only get that code by listening to this podcast.
Oh, yeah, true. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Transform Yourself. If you found today's discussion valuable, please share it with somebody who might benefit. Remember that you are capable of incredible change, and it does begin with the 4 M's. Until next time, stay committed to your journey. Know that you are capable, and keep transforming yourself.
Adios.